Before Jesus ascended into heaven, he gave his followers a command. Wait. I don't know about you, but I don't like waiting. I'd much rather be doing something. Waiting seems so counterproductive. But what if Jesus is wanting us to wait? Wait and see what he is going to do. Are you prepared to wait until Jesus shows you what's next? What does waiting look like? Before you go on, just encourage you to pause the video and spend a few moments reading reflectively the second half of the first chapter of Acts. Here we see the early Jesus followers gathered together, obeying Jesus' command, waiting. What did it look like for them to wait? What can we learn from their example? There are three things that I observe. Luke tells us that in one mind they devoted themselves to prayer. What does it look like to pray with one mind, in one accord? In Luke's Gospel, he showed us that these people didn't always get along. They didn't think, feel, or react the same. But here they are devoted to prayer, praying in one accord. When we find ourselves waiting, should we maybe be devoting ourselves to prayer? And what would it look like for us to pray with one mind? In addition to praying, I noticed that they reflect deeply on Scripture. So much has happened these past several weeks. So much they're still trying to make sense of. Like the plight of their friend Judas. After journeying 3 years with them, 3 years with Jesus, Judas went and betrayed Jesus. And when he realized what he'd done, filled with remorse, Judas ended up taking his own life. What a tragedy it was. I can't help wondering how differently things might have turned out if Judas had returned to his friends and allowed Jesus to restore him the way he had Peter. But it's too late now, and so his friends are left trying to make sense of things. It's Peter who stands up and quotes the Psalms as he seeks to make sense of the way things ended up and how they might move forward. When we struggle to make sense of things, what might it look like for us to reflect deeply in Scripture? So here they are waiting. What are they doing? They're devoted to prayer and they're reflecting deeply on Scripture. What else might they do? They do what needs doing. Based on their knowledge of how God had worked throughout history, they understood that they had to replace Judas so that they had 12 members of that group Jesus had chosen. Jesus' command to wait didn't stop them from tending to the task at hand. They prayerfully selected 2 suitable men to replace Judas, Joseph and Matthias, and then after committing the situation to God in prayer, they drew lots. It was their way of giving God the final call, and so Matthias was chosen to replace Judas. So what do we learn about waiting? Here are some questions to ponder. Sit with them, discuss them amongst yourselves, share them in your small groups. Could God be calling us into a season of waiting? What might that look like for us? To what extent do you think we're of one mind? And what might it look like for us to be devoted to prayer in one accord? When we find ourselves in that place of waiting, trying to make sense of things, how might we be able to deeply reflect in Scripture? What might that look like in practice? And as we commit ourselves to waiting on God, what might it look like for us to go about getting on with what needs doing? And how do we discern what it is that needs doing? There's one thing I am certain of. Jesus didn't command these people to wait just for the sake of it. He wanted them to be ready, expectant, and prepared for what he was about to do. So how ready and expectant are we? How prepared are we for what Jesus might be about to do amongst us?